I thought, that's a profoundly arrogant view. Like, how did I ever come to think that was even possible? And from there, I learned a little bit of humility to actually lean into, I wonder what I'm missing, because I'm sure the universe hasn't made a mistake. So, I think that's, So, once we get to the point of actually doing that, it actually can be a dance. So the exercise that we did at the beginning, leaning back, you can actually find a way to have fun with that, to actually notice the points where there seems to be tension. I call this the opposable self. And like an opposable thumb, there's something interesting that happens. If there is a lack of sense of continuity, of connection, it comes across as oppositionality, as headbutting, as either or. There's one way right. This is I know, and we can't find that center because we're not really listening deep enough. But it's not out there. It's not actually changing your mind about it. It's actually listening more deeply, finding the connection point, and balancing into what is here that I'm missing that actually will give me the perspective that I need, the meta perspective that I need, to hear you and me at the same time. And from that place, I actually have the way to trust wisdom. So, I'll open it up to questions, but thank you very much for that. Any questions about any of that? Any thoughts or anything you want to share back? Or?
I just have a question in regards to your intention of doing that. I, for myself, have been charged all day long, and we've spoken on these topics, and I'm completely interested in all of them. But I did find myself, like, sitting here, forcing myself to go, what the heck is going on? Because that never happens to me.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. I don't get tired. I don't put energy towards tired. I'm able to transport. But in that moment, when you said that, I was actually experiencing that on a strange level that I haven't experienced, where something was, where I was literally like forcing myself, going, this is really strange. This is really, really strange, because I don't experience that on a day-to-day. So I just wanted to hear if you, when you said you were doing it intentionally, how you were able to adapt. I just wanted to hear more on that aspect of.
I'll say, here's the way I'll answer that, is that I grew up somehow blessed with the ability to kind of hear the negative space, hear the background. And so when teachers at an age of 5-year-old told me you were wrong about this, or ministers told me, nope, that's not the way the world is, this is the way it is, I knew somewhere that I was right, and they may be right too, but I'm not wrong. And so I maintained a way of kind of keeping track of that. And it shows itself up in ways that I watch movies, and so you've seen I've used a lot of metaphors here. I have tons more. But as I have these metaphors, I kind of have them in a storehouse, and so at the right moment they'll come up. And I'll often try to give them to people. So in a conversation, I'll notice, oh wow, here's all this stuff, and I'll give them metaphors, and then notice their eyes getting droopy, and say, I think I'm full, David. I don't think I could take another drop of that. And I notice the same thing happening for me. And I notice, oh, it's that point of challenge. It's that point in which I no longer can quite keep up. My existing models are struggling on overdrive, trying to churn. I mean, it's, if you heard it, if your PC was doing that, you would hear the fan going, it's like burning high cycles, right? Trying to keep up with, how do I process this conflicting information? So there is a way in which I recognize that that happens. And there's actually a benefit and a gift to noticing that, with the ability to relax into it and see if there's something on the other side of that. So it may happen immediately, it may happen over the next couple of days, it may not happen at all. And it may not happen in such a way that you recognize it. But I imagine that you're probably charged up, you have some interesting things. Something will happen probably over the next week, next month or so, that will spark this as I think I'm having one of those moments where, you know, I'm having a fight with somebody and I step back for a moment, wow, I wonder how our values are different, right? So that's the intention, is to bring that to the fore.
You know, I notice sometimes I watch this show called Cosmic Disclosures on Gaia TV.
Yeah.
And it's you know, put your belief system aside, but it's about all this disclosure happening from the government and the secret space program. And it's all these concepts about like what it's like living on a base underground, what the replicator that brings your food is like, what the ETs that you're doing healings on. It's like this whole other world. And I'll be listening, and it's so many concepts out of my range of thinking. I always fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I have to watch it like 4 times because I'm fascinated, but I fall asleep.
Yeah.
So I think there's a phenomenon there where the rational brain just like kind of shuts down.
I think so. I think that's exactly what's happening. I notice with myself. In fact, it's interesting. I no longer read books because my mind is going on another track and I always lose track and fall asleep or something. But I listen to audiobooks because I'm driving. I have to pay attention, and if my mind needs to wander, it's processing on another channel, and actually allows me to process a lot of that information in a different way. But yeah, I think you're exactly right that happens a lot. And you're reminding me, the book that I'm actually reading in the physical mode is, how many of you know about Gene Keys? Richard Rudd's book? Yeah. That book, for me, is one of these books that pushes my envelope. In fact, it being my birthday, we're right now in Gene Key 31, which is, got it in my background here. Gene Key 31 is, it's my life's work. It's arrogance to leadership to humility. And it's a very interesting, I was reading through it just today before I came here to give this talk, and it's along that same line. The arrogance is the appearance, as I want to be well-liked. As a Leo, that's very definitely true.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm a Leo too.
Yeah.
Any other Leos? I see that. Only Leos would say that.
I know, exactly. Very true. But that through transition from leadership to humility, it's really fascinating. And every time I read one of these sections on a Gene Key, I get something new. And it's fascinating to me to see how much is possible to get to that. And as I learn that and integrate it, I've actually had the experience of having mental models that I had somehow internalized into my belly where I can move from that place, and my mind is clear and looks around with a new clarity and perspective to see other things around me. So it's the other book that I'll mention is Stealing Fire by it is a great book, and it's one of the ways that we can use the process of flow. And again, in the very same way, when we're going through that flow process, there can be a kind of a dark night of the soul after you've gone through that flow process. Have you ever done that where you've got it feels like the wings of God are flowing under your the wind of God is flowing beneath your wings, and you're actually getting a lot done. When that ends, it can feel like you've been dropped, right? It can feel like a dark night of the soul. Like all I want to do is go back to that. What happened? I was right there, I was in the pocket, in the zone, and now I'm not. And it's part of that process of actually coming back to integrating all of that and slowing down and allowing that to come forward. But it can feel kind of like a shock in that process of regoing it. Okay, I'm done.
Oh, I had a question.
Okay, question, yeah.
Question is, why this speech and why here?
So this speech, I've been working, as I said, the book is called Trust is Technology, and it's actually understanding how do I trust myself to engage with the world. Right, I have often felt like we don't give enough credence to the idea that the collective knows something. And it's one of those pieces that I've known we know, but that we don't know how to quite listen to it. When Helen Keller had that insight, I now have language, when that insight came to me, it was, I think we're on the cusp of being able to speak the language of the collective, of actually being able to move like a flock of birds or like a school of fish, singly as a single body, without the limiting hierarchical views of the maps. And with everything that's going on right now with Me Too and with politicians and hierarchy and all of this stuff, it's like, I think that this is the experience of bumping into the limits of the previous paradigm on a massive scale. It feels like it's time for us to find a way to let go of that and see beyond that, beyond the limits of our knowledge to our wisdom. And that challenge of doing that is extremely difficult. But once I know this, it sort of eases that transition so it's not so bad. This group in particular, I went to the Voice Force the Next a couple of years ago. Having looked at it, I thought this is something I want to participate in. I went in it and participated this year as well, inviting more people to participate. And when I came to the Voice of Next Gardens in June and talking to Layla and some others, it was like this material feels more relevant now than it ever has. It feels like it's clear for me coming through, and it feels like it's relevant for the people that are going through it. It's a way of kind of mapping a lot of the challenges that we're going through that allows us to work together a little bit, despite the fact that we're looking at very different models of how to solve some very big problems. So that's why.
I really appreciated the metaphors you used, and there was a moment that it really clicked for me with like the different perspectives and the different parts of the elephant.
Yeah.
And in a partnership or relationship, I'm finding like there's a lot of like triggers that come up that are past programming. And in those moments, like, you know, even more recently, I was reminded like you're only looking at it through one perspective instead of seeing like all the elements that have like built up a character. And the integrity piece is a big one for me. That's the one I struggle with. And even when we did the exercise, I can notice myself like not really finding that center of gravity and being like, I got this, I control this, you know? So is there any practices you would recommend for essentially breaking that programming that has created like a misperception of integrity within myself and others? Like, is there anything I can do to rebuild integrity, or a sense of confidence within integrity?
There is. There are a couple of things. One of the practices that I've been engaged in that's been most beneficial in actually bringing this stuff to light is circling. You may have heard of circling. Monday nights we do it down at VUCA on Monroe at South First from 6:30 to 8:30. I recommend that highly. When I first went to study circling, my intuition said, I've spent so much of my life trying to figure out the right way to be in life, and I think I've gotten about as far as I can. Like, I saw the diminishing returns, how much runway I had left in this life, and I thought, as much as I need to do, I'm not going to do it. I need to somehow listen to my body. That was actually the thought that crossed my mind when I said, I need to find something that will do that. And I recalled seeing something about circling 2 years prior. I thought, I wonder if that would be something that I could use to actually trust myself more deeply. And over the past 2.5 years, it's not been an easy route. It's just like meditation in general. It can take quite a bit of time to do that, but it's one thing that's been very effective for me. There are other ways to do that as well. One of the things that I've learned from that perspective is that the thing, when I look very deeply, and this was an insight that came to me from circling, when I notice that I'm in that defensive mode or that righteous mode, I feel like I'm protecting something. And when I can actually get down to beneath that to see what is it that I'm protecting, I'm surprised, because the thing that I'm protecting is actually invulnerable. The thing that I'm afraid was going to be violated can't possibly be violated. And it's a real surprise to me. So one of the practices that I've engaged in lately is if I feel like I'm embarrassed in a situation, like if you knew something about me that would make you stop liking me or loving me, I check it out and say, hey, I wonder if I can actually share this perspective in a way that I can be with, that doesn't violate my boundaries and doesn't violate your boundaries. And that practice helps deepen it. That's kind of an accelerated way to do that. It feels extremely vulnerable, but I find that I actually relax in doing that. I can find the thing that I think, because it's actually the illusion that it's harmable or that I could be disconnected because of this. When I actually look, it's like, no, actually, that's the most rock solid part of me. That's the part of me that I know the most. And when I can let go of the protection around it, I actually have a lot more maneuverability. Similar to if I tried to hold my back against the wall and tried the ways in which I restrict my motion in order to protect myself, I'm actually making myself more fragile to risk.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think the simple awareness will definitely be like transformative, but in that moment when the trigger happens,
Yes.
I mean, it is challenging to get soft and be like, wait, what am I actually looking at? So like, do you breathe into it and just say, okay, I'm going to go deeper into this? Yeah.
I saw Greg raise his hand. I want to let him answer, but what I'll say is, I've been doing this with my wife, and I noticed that when we got into a heated discussion about something, it just like I thought, it snapped me out of this. Like, oh, wait a minute. We have some difference in values. I don't know what it is, but can we take some time just to kind of recenter, just so that I can find myself in this moment? Because I know we agree, but somehow it feels like we don't. So I want to find what is it about me that feels like I'm being violated or not safe. And in that moment, it was able to de-escalate very quickly, to walk away from it, and for me to call him back and say, I'm so sorry that I reacted that way. And she said, no, it was my fault. And we came back to really looking at what was the thing that we were concerned about. So it doesn't necessarily go away easily, but the practice of it continues to make it easier to do that. Ray, did you have something you want to say?
The refined practice that David is speaking to, the word he keeps using and keeps showing up real strong, is notice. He's noticing. And there's actually like a communication skill, language skill called noticing. It's a noticing practice. It's being used in the authentic related community. And it's very basic emotional intelligence skill that we actually use in